Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Christine here to discuss Alith Anar in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. Alith Anar has been one of my favorite campaigns ever since Immortal Empires has come out, but with the release of Thrones of Decay, and specifically patch 5.0, Creative Assembly has given him a fairly substantial buff in his campaign. In multiple ways, there are several things that do matter, be it climate, changes to races that do affect him or do affect his campaign, and battle prowess, because Alith Anar used to be pretty damn useless in battle. Like, I've played plenty of campaigns as this guy, but really it was a question of his faction effects, his lord effects, and his army that carried the campaign. Him personally in battle, I mean, he was a great distraction card effects, if you will, but in terms of him doing actual damage, that was pretty tricky. But that has changed. So let me just go over in this battle and showcase what I'm talking about over here. Yes, this battle is very likely going to be an ambush when you do start this campaign. One of the problems for Alith Anar was the fact that while he is supposed to be this master bowman, and he does have the stats certainly to carry him with that. He has firing while moving, he has the clone to distract enemies that might be getting too close. The problem you would encounter in his campaign is that from a practical standpoint, that just wouldn't happen. He would struggle a lot of the time to get shots off. He would certainly not have the combat potential that you might expect from someone of his caliber in the lore. But that has changed. But how has it changed? Well, I think Legend of Total War probably put this in the best possible way. What has changed with respect to range combat is the fact that range units are far more willing to risk friendly fire when they are shooting. That is the principal benefit that does affect Alith Anar. I'm also sure there's other range benefits, but for instance, it was very difficult in a lot of situations when your units were engaging the enemy, or when there was any obstacle for Alith Anar to actually get shots off. So you ended up having this really powerful archer who would do absolutely nothing in your battles, or do very, very little. And that, as you might imagine, is something of a problem, because it meant that his major combat prowess that he does have was really wasted. I mean, it was a problem in range units in general. My theory on the subject is not so much about friendly fire, but I think what's really going on is the fact that in general, range units are more willing to shoot whenever there's an obstacle. So like, be it terrain features in sieges in particular, be it units that might be getting in the way, those kind of things. The AI just in general is the range units you have, and this applies to the AI as well, so bear in mind that there's obviously an issue you have to deal with as a player, but range units in general are just more willing, slightly more willing to shoot through obstacles. Like, there's still going to be line of sight issues, but like, if you had told me pre-patch that I'd be fighting with Alith Anar using all of his ammunition in a battle, yeah, that was not going to happen. Like, obviously this was kind of like a good case scenario because I ambushed him and I was able to get him at a good angle, but like, him doing this level of damage is fairly exceptional. So if we look at the post-battle situation, we can see he did 6k damage, which is more than the Shadowwalkers. Not quite as much as some of these regular archers, but yeah, the Shadowwalkers struggled because like they were behind the Spearmen. So like, you still have to care about formations, you still have to care about line of sight, but it's just like more usefulness for ranged units in general shooting for obstacles, especially in sieges, but like bumps in the terrain for gunpowder units, all that. So in general, like, range has gotten a fairly nice buff with the release of 5.0. And it means that if you're using Alith Anar, suddenly his range combat chain is significantly more useful. You know, ammunition, reload time reduction, piercing shots, like, this guy is dangerous now. So be aware if you're going up against Alith Anar, because he has certainly a lot more bite than he used to before. I mean, my strategy, personally, if I'm playing Dark Elves or Valkia or Sigvald even, is to try and out-resolve him. Bit difficult as Sinnelleos, I gotta admit, because, yeah, Vampire Coast of his Vampire Coast. But that's the first benefit in his campaign. A fairly substantial battle benefit, but really, Alith Anar, even before these changes, was very good in battles, even if it was just his army carrying the day. But there is more. Because of the dwarf rework, Grombrindal is suddenly significantly more useful, and while Grombrindal doesn't particularly like elves, he certainly does hate dark elves, and he hates chaos. So if you're playing a campaign as Alith Anar, hell, even if you're playing campaign as Malekith, it's pretty hilarious, but if you're playing a campaign as Alith Anar or Malekith or Hellebron, you can actually ally Grombrindal, yeah. If you're playing Grombrindal, allying Malekith is a bad idea, because campaign objectives, but Malekith, he has nothing to stop him from doing it. So the thing about the dwarves, they have a far more powerful army, a far more versatile army, better economy, and they just handle in the campaign better, casualty replenishment, all that. So the reason this is significant is because there is certainly a limit of expansion over here in Naggarond, and it's basically over here to the Fortress of Damned. But with Grombrindal being more useful, you can rely on him at least holding the line against Sigvald, Malice Darkblade, etc., over here in this particular section of the campaign map. And you can rely on him helping you out, because, I mean, this campaign is pretty brutal. Like, you've got Hellebron to the north, Malekith, Silostra, Tarax. Well, Tarax is not really that much of a challenge, but Katep potentially. Just don't go to war with Katep, you will regret that. You don't have to. Be'lakor to the east, all that. So there's a lot of foes. That's what makes this campaign great. You're very powerful, but you also have a lot of foes to deal with. Powerful foes to deal with. So having a stronger ally now does certainly change the dynamic by quite a bit. But then there's the final point. Climate. Yes, the climate situation has been significantly improved. Not because Alith Anar has suddenly gotten more climate situation. No, he only has frozen and wasteland. Now, of course, that means he has all of Naggarond at his disposal. It does mean he has Kislev at his disposal. But now he has Norska at his disposal, or very substantial chunks of Norska. Not all of it. There's still plenty of mountain over here. But really, this used to be a lot of chaotic wasteland. And the problem with that is, like, chaotic wasteland for high elves in general is uninhabitable. There is a significant difference in building up something in terms of unpleasant climate, which, given the high elf strength of economy, is certainly doable, and building something in uninhabitable climate. It's actually a benefit for all high elves, but it actually affects Alith Anar the most, because one, he doesn't have Ulfwan as good climate, he has severe climate limitations, so the change to Norska that they made for really Malachai's benefit does actually end up affecting Alith Anar's campaign in a very substantial way. I mean, there's still plenty of mountains, not ideal, but yeah, it's a much, much better situation. And then furthermore, this creates a situation where you can realistically play a campaign without having to deal with uninhabitable climate at any point. Like, maybe you will want to fight some of the factions over here to the north, but that's where Grombrindal comes in to help you out. But then you can realistically expand your territory all the way into Darklands and go meet Imric, who, yeah, I'm sure Alith Anar would want to shoot Imric, or several times. But you do have a much better climate situation, which means easier building up settlements, easier access to heroes, easier access to more unit variety, more rewarding territory. So suddenly, Alith Anar's campaign has become a lot better. Like, I'd still probably recommend dealing with all of Naggarond first before going into Kislev, building up the economy, confederating Ulfwan. But once you do that, you just basically have a campaign where you're going to have territory to expand towards without reaching a point where, like, you're just limited by climate, which is actually a fairly substantial issue in some campaigns. Like, some campaigns just get into the situation where after a certain point in the early game, they just don't have territory to expand towards without it being very painful. High elves have a good economy, so it's less painful for them in general than many other races. But on top of that, Like not having to deal with red climate does substantially benefit you. And go to Zarnagru and get the hero capacity from Tamarkan. That would be really fun. In fact, one of the things I would advise people to do if they're going to play a High Elf campaign, because this is a final benefit, a bit of a hidden one. High Elves have one problem. Their hero capacity can only be increased at tier 4. And unless you're like playing Alariel with handmaidens and only hand for handmaidens. So that is a severely limiting factor. Like you can get all the heroes at tier 3 except handmaidens who do require tier 4 one. You can get all the heroes at tier 3 or tier 4, but increasing capacity for like mages, nobles, it's tricky, right? If you can get Tamarkan's defeat rate, probably playing Imric's campaign, and you can play campaign of the High Elves of, say, Imric, save a bunch of characters with Tamarkan's defeat rate, load them up in another campaign. So, you know, you could load up a bunch of lords in Alith Anar's campaign. Yes, load save character, it's pretty cheesy, but like, even if you're not willing to do that, it is a much better situation what he has to deal with right now compared to before. A better ally, better climate, better range prowess. And the range benefits certainly affect him the most, him personally, but it also affects his army. So, stronger campaign, better legendary lord, better climate, just overall a better experience. That's all I had to say. Costin here signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications.